Politico reported that that the Bidens have hired as a person who was a spokesperson for them at the Pentagon, a very high-powered PR person, and that most presidents don't go on the View, 110 days or whatever it is after they leave office. And people are saying he wants to burnish his legacy, et cetera. And there's no doubt if you watch the interview that that's a motivator. But I talked to someone yesterday who knows the very understanding of the Biden family. And this person basically said it's all hiding in plain sight. Yeah, they want to burnish their legacy. Yeah, Biden is addicted to the life he's had for decades where, it's all about being in the public stage. But it's also about, as they say, the Benjamins, that the Biden family, Hunter, not going to prison because he was pardoned, but Hunter's earning potential, at least currently, is nothing like it was when he was, a lawyer and a fixer and a Burisma board member or an art salesperson with his dad in the White House. That his brothers, who made a lot of money for the family, also now don't have a president or a vice president or someone who might be president in office. And that all these grandkids who had very cool lives and lots of free stuff and access to, special things, that the gravy train has been cut off. And that as a former president, because of the way he left office and because of his lack of connection to some of the most moneyed people in the country, that he's not getting $800,000 speeches. He's not going to get a book deal the size of the Obamas. And that part of what this is about is trying to put him back in play as a figure who can be a rainmaker for Biden Inc. How do you see that?
There's a great speech that Marco Rubio gave last night. I really encourage everybody to watch it. It was about 15 minutes long. It was hilarious. I didn't know he was funny. I guess I kind of spaced on that. Very sharp, very genuine. He sort of moved into Spanish a little bit. It was at a Hispanic caucus heritage. He got an achievement award for something.
Yeah.
But at one point, he said one of the joys of his job is that he sees people who were interns for him, 5 years later, 10 years later, 15 years later, and, they're much more successful. And he says a lot of them, in fact, most of them are making much more money than he is, and their clothes are much better than his are, and that there's a sort of real joy to that. And I really it really stood out to me because I was just thinking about that in contradistinction to just the bare bones basic millions of dollars that a Democrat retiring would consider to be the baseline that they would
Right.
need in order just to exist. Like, when did that happen? That you needed to be making millions and millions of dollars in order to just retire from public life. There's just something really crazy about that to me. And you
Right.
see it in a lot of these people because a lot of them are making just millions and millions and millions of dollars. But that thing where, 65% of people now who make more than $500,000 a year are Democrats, and 75% of Silicon Valley donors donate to the Democrats. 95% of donations coming out of the top three management consultant firms go to Democrats. And just this sort of idea that the Democrats have become the moneyed party, the moneyed side of
Yeah.
things. Not to say that
Well,
there are no Republicans
there
doing this,
exactly.
obviously. Yeah,
There
yeah.
are,
But
and of course Donald Trump has buck raked in the White House more literally, than probably in terms of the money he's made off the office than every other president combined. So it's not a problem for Democrats, except it's a personal problem for the Bidens. And I've seen this with other people I've covered over the years. If you're a senator or a presidential candidate, you hang out with donors who live on Fifth Avenue. You hang out with other elected officials who are multimillionaires, and you hang out with celebrities. And it's just like, well, I want those things too. I want to be able to have a house on Martha's Vineyard, or I want to be able to fly first class or fly private. And the Bidens had Biden Inc. And again, that I say this about the president's health, and I say this about the cover up of his decline, and I say this about Biden Inc. It's none of them are as bad as the Republicans claim, and none of them are as innocent or fine as the Democrats claim. And in the case of Biden Inc., you don't have to be the most vociferous critic of how Joe Biden allowed his brothers and his son to make money off of by trading off his public office to see that those guys made a lot of money trading off his public office. Like you can assume the least negative about Joe's involvement or awareness, whatever. And I don't assume the least because there's documentation for it. But even then, the reality is he is no longer able to, they're no longer able to leverage him the way they did before. And my sense is, from particularly from this person I talked to, that the more he rehabs himself, the more he's seen as a relevant player, the more likely is that those guys are going to be able to figure out how to make money off of him again. And they need that. There's a lot of grandkids. Their great grandkids, are going to be coming and in greater numbers. And he's been the source of their ability to make money.
Yeah, our friend Emma Jo Morris was, I forget who she was quoting recently, but she said that Joe Biden has been sort of like that book, The Giving Tree, where
Right.
everybody around him is sort of squeezing him for whatever they can get out of him. I think the reason that the Democrats are hesitant to, have even acknowledged this is because they love to point out what you pointed out, which is that Trump has also made money, in the time that he was president, off the office or what have you, his children and so forth. But they'll always say, "Oh, that's not the same because Trump has made so much more money." They act like the fact that Trump is better at it somehow means that there's like a difference in kind when it's really just a difference in degree.